That's all right. And here we go. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another New Jersey Constitutional Republicans virtual conversation. It's my great pleasure and honor today to have Marie Tasy, the Executive Director of New Jersey Right to Life, with me here this evening. Marie, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, JR.
She's been doing outstanding work, and I want to start the program, if we could, Marie, with giving the people a little bio about yourself and New Jersey Right to Life and its history.
Okay. Well, as JR mentioned, my name is Marie Tasy. I'm the Executive Director for New Jersey Right to Life. I got involved in the pro-life movement almost 30 years ago when my youngest child was 2 years old. And the reason I got involved was that I was really sick and tired of seeing women presuming to speak for me on TV and being quoted in the newspaper who supported abortion when I knew that there were many other women like me that did not agree with that philosophy. And I just happened to be watching TV one day and I saw a group of people protesting outside an abortion clinic. And I saw the abortion clinic workers coming out and lying about the fetal development of a baby. And I knew clearly that that was lies because I had 3 children of my own and a 2-year-old in my arms at the time. And I got so upset, I picked up the phone, I called New Jersey Right to Life, and I got involved. And I've been involved with the organization since about 1992. I had different roles in the organization. I was a volunteer for many years. I was a county leader. I was the Public and Legislative Affairs Director for many years. And then I became the Executive Director in 2005. And I've been the Executive Director ever since. The organization has been in effect since 1971. So 50 years this year, the organization has been in effect. And, we have really gone through a lot of, struggles in the 50 years. Of course, I haven't been involved all that time. But it's very clear that, there is a mission that needs to go forward. And we have seen many things happen that we never thought would. We've seen many miracles in the time that I've been involved. And it's just such an important issue. And I just encourage everyone listening, if you're not already involved, to please get involved because it's the greatest human rights issue of our time.
No question about that. And you've been at this a long time, Marie. And I remember back in the 1980s when President Ronald Reagan was president, the vast majority of Republicans were pro-life. Practically 90% of Republicans in those days in the early 80s were pro-life. And one of the impetuses that motivated me to create the Constitutional Republican organization was to bring back that desire to protect the inviolability of the life of the child from conception and have Republicans once again rejuvenated in order to make sure that the lives of those developing in the womb of their mother are protected. So it's been a long time, and this is something that we continue to do. And of course, you're doing great work, especially with the most recent proposal sponsored by Senator Loretta Weinberg and others, with Phil Murphy's full endorsement of the what they call the New Jersey Reproductive Freedom Act. And of course, we know that there's a tremendous play on words there. It's A 3030, A 4848. So talk to us about what's been going on or what the proposals are in that bill. If you will, I can help you. I have some information too, but also what has been done to slow this bill down successfully.
Well, as you said, it's a 45-page bill. And it is very vague in a lot of areas, but when you've been working on legislation as long as I have, I am able to extract a lot of information and really put it all together and to be able to then analyze it and summarize it for people so that they understand exactly what they're trying to do. So the first thing is that Governor Murphy and his wife appeared at a press conference in October to announce the introduction of the bill, and Planned Parenthood hosted the press conference. And governors don't usually introduce bills, so that was really kind of interesting. And he said that it was going to be a bill that would protect and expand abortion rights in New Jersey. And the reason that they felt it was important is that they were concerned that the U.S. Supreme Court could overturn Roe versus Wade. And that was the reason why they felt it was important to introduce this bill. Having said that, New Jersey has some of the most, if not the most, liberal permissive abortion laws in the nation. We have a Supreme Court decision from 1982 called Right to Choose versus Byrne that found in that decision that our Constitution is broader than the federal Constitution and the right to abortion is broader. And it also required that taxpayers fund Medicaid abortions. So, clearly they were not in danger of having abortion rights taken away from them. Now, of course, that's not something that we're happy about, but we have passed laws in New Jersey in the late 1990s when Republicans were in control. We passed a ban on partial birth abortion and a parental notification law. They were both struck down by the courts, challenged by Planned Parenthood. Since that time, the Democrats took control, and they have not moved any pro-life legislation since that time. The bill is very radical. It is abortion extremism in the most radical way. It says that a child in the womb has no rights at all. The language says that, let's see here, I have it. The act defines pregnancy as a period of the human reproductive process beginning with the implantation of the egg, and says a fertilized egg, embryo, or fetus shall not have independent rights under the laws of this state. It also says that the law explicitly guarantees to every individual the fundamental right to reproductive autonomy, which includes the right to contraception, the right to abortion, sterilization, and the right to carry a pregnancy to term. It would restrain future legislatures from passing laws supported by New Jersey voters and upheld by the Supreme Court in Planned Parenthood versus Casey and the Gonzalez versus Carhart case, like parental notification of a minor's abortion, informed consent laws, and bans on preterm abortions like partial birth abortion. It also would prevent the right of New Jersey voters to decide what laws should be enacted if Roe versus Wade was ever overturned. If Roe versus Wade ever is overturned, it would go back to the states, and then each state would get to decide. So this would prevent future legislatures from passing laws that would address evolving views and scientific facts on fetal development, and it would prevent the voters of New Jersey from having a say on one of the most important issues of our time. It will invalidate the conscience clause that has been in place since 1974 because it says, this is the act, and it invalidates and prohibits the future adoption of all laws, regulations, rules, regulations, ordinances, resolutions, policies, standards, or parts thereof that conflict with the provisions of the express or implied purposes of the act. It also says that the law should be liberally construed, which means that if the actual law passed and was ever challenged, or portions of it were challenged, the court would take the most extreme positions in interpreting the law. So we have to keep that in mind as well. Not only is the language itself extremely broad in its breadth and scope, but it's giving carte blanche to any court to interpret it how they see fit. It will pay for all abortions for residents of the state and those who come into the state. And that's actually the language in the bill, including those who are incarcerated, regardless of where they are domiciled. Again, that's language in the bill. So we'll be paying, taxpayers will be paying for all abortions, sterilizations, forced abortions. It'll become a haven for New Jersey sex traffickers who will take minors to New Jersey with impunity and force them to have abortions and sterilizations, and New Jersey taxpayers will be footing the bill. It will sadly increase the disproportionate number of abortions among minority groups. The whole premise of this law, they have in many of the sections, the beginning of it, they say that they want to make it, equitable for minority women to have abortions, and that's the reason why one of the reasons why they're moving this legislation, but it'll actually have the adverse effect. It's important to note the statistics here. New Jersey has the shameful distinction of having the second highest rate of abortions in the nation. We are second after the District of Columbia. Now, District of Columbia isn't a state, so really we're the first state with the highest number of abortions. There is clearly no lack of access to abortions in our state. statistics from the CDC show that a disproportionate number of abortions in New Jersey are done on women of color. We also have one of the highest infant and maternal mortality rates in the nation among minority populations. Statistics from the CDC show that over 70% of abortions in New Jersey are performed on minority women, and that's from the latest statistics from 2016. So this law will not only start to exacerbate these numbers among the minority population, but will increase the number of abortions, leading to future problems with premature births, which is one of the leading causes of infant mortality. And this is important because Governor Murphy's wife, Tammy Murphy, has introduced a 97-page manifesto called Nurture New Jersey. And the whole premise of this, again, is to decrease the high rate of infant and maternal mortality in New Jersey among the minority population. And all throughout this whole report, they're promoting abortion and funding of Planned Parenthood and the passage of the Reproductive Freedom Act and paying for the abortions of undocumented immigrants, as well as people who come from outside the state. The other thing that's important to note, and this just happened recently, the act will codify dangerous rules that were adopted by the New Jersey Board of Medical Examiners that will allow non-physicians to perform abortions, which will make abortions less safe for women. It will also make the buying and selling of baby body parts and fetal tissue even easier, which is already a lucrative market in New Jersey. And we really believe that this is one of the main reasons why they're pushing this bill, because the fetal tissue market is very lucrative, and New Jersey is one of the few states that does allow the buying and selling of fetal tissue. So they're going to actually let nurse practitioners, midwives, and advanced care practice nurses perform abortions. They did away with they're doing away with the regulation that required that abortions after 14 weeks had to be done by an OB/GYN in a licensed facility. The new rules will allow them to do them in an office setting with non-physicians, and there is no limit on when abortions can be performed in the state of New Jersey. Tell me how that helps women. I certainly don't see it. It also, and this is really unbelievable, it exempts prosecution for individuals who commit infanticide. How does it do that? Well, it says, this is the language in there, it says that, remember, the fetus shall have no independent rights, that's right in the law, and it also exempts individuals from prosecution for, quote, terminating or attempting to terminate the individual's own pregnancy, or acting or failing to act in any manner with respect to the individual's own pregnancy based on the potential or actual impact on the individual's own health or pregnancy. Additionally, it expressly deletes language in current law that would require a medico-legal investigation and autopsy for a fetal death occurring without medical attendance. So you put that all together, what that means is that a woman who gives birth and leaves a newborn to die or engages in a deliberate act, like the prom mom, to cause the death of a newborn will not be prosecuted, and no autopsy or legal investigation will be conducted to determine the baby's cause of death. New Jersey currently has a safe haven law in effect that allows a mother or a parent or someone designated by the parent to deliver a baby safely to any emergency room of any hospital in New Jersey, any police station, any fire station, with no questions asked. If they feel they can't take care of the child. That child can be 30 days old or less. And the whole idea of that was to prevent mothers and women who might be in desperate situations from harming their babies and facing prosecution. So now that they want to remove the threat of prosecution, it clearly could very well gut the effectiveness of the safe haven law, which has saved about 80 babies in the state of New Jersey. It's just absolutely shameful that they want to do this. It also will mandate that all abortions, including late-term abortions, will be covered in all New Jersey health insurance plans, which means that our insurance premiums will go sky high. They're saying that there should be no deductible, no co-insurance or co-payment. So we'll be paying now for the cost of all abortions and all birth control for a 12-month supply. And obviously our premiums are all going to be going up. Now, there is a severability clause, which means that if any parts of the bill are declared unconstitutional, the other parts will remain in effect. We believe that the whole bill is unconstitutional, and if it does pass, we would certainly be looking to challenge it in a court. So this is basically it in a nutshell, but I mean, there's a lot more to this bill, but I tried to summarize it as best that I could for you. And, we have a lot of information on our website. I've been working together with many other pro-life groups. We're all unified to try and fight this bill. We have a very diverse coalition. Democrats for Life are working very hard to oppose this bill. We've held several protests outside this legislative sponsors' offices, and we're going to continue to do that. We most recently heard that there isn't a lot of inclination by the legislature to move this in an election year, but we certainly aren't taking anything for granted, and we're going to continue our advocacy efforts to let people know about this bill, how radical it is. We know that people in New Jersey do not support abortions the entire 9 months of pregnancy. We know that people in New Jersey support common sense laws like parental notification, late term bans on abortion, and that they believe that non-physicians should not be performing abortions. And people don't want to pay for it. We don't want to fund Planned Parenthood, which this bill will mandate funding annually in the budget. Governor Murphy, since he's been elected, has given $74 million, $74 million, our tax dollars, to Planned Parenthood. And he's going to continue to do that in this year's budget. So, it's very shameful that they're pushing this bill. And it's shameful that the governor's wife is, pushing abortion under the pretense of trying to prevent, maternal and infant mortalities. It's just absolutely shameful.
Well, the great work that you've done probably prompted Senator Loretta Weinberg, one of the sponsors of this bill, last week to say, as you said, that she said that there has been some opposition, quote, and then she says, well, I wouldn't say opposition, but some pushback from some members in both houses who don't think we really have to do this now. So I attribute that to the rallies that you've organized and the work that you've done in getting out. We also produced a video called Phil Murphy and the Reproductive Act, the Reproductive Freedom Act, which I can't articulate because it's so disingenuous to name it that.
We call it the Freedom to Kill Act because that's exactly what it does.
That's exactly what it is. But I think that when we see Loretta Weinberg say that last week, we can attribute that as a victory. But also, Marie, let's let the people know that if you're a Republican and you live in a legislative district that has Democrat representatives, you certainly still must call them, write to them, email them, call and meet with them, and let them know of your displeasure for this injustice that this bill represents and that abortion represents. And also, if you're a Republican, you should be calling your representatives, legislative representatives in the Senate and in the Assembly, and tell them and let them know by name of the bill, which is A3830 or A3030 and S4040. Let them know of your displeasure, and that this is how our founders, Maria, expected the citizens to be involved. They talked about self-governance, that the people needed to be involved in the legislative process. We just don't vote for people and then send them to the Capitol and put everything on their shoulders. They have to know what it is they're doing in representing our natural rights. And that includes the natural rights of those awaiting their birth. And I would say that the work that you've done has been directly attributable to slowing this legislation down.
Well, thank you. I have to give all my coalition partners credit because it's been a combined effort. We're working together now to make sure that this bill does not pass, and we're going to do the best that we can to educate the public. And we're happy to do that. And of course, we're always available if people have any questions. You can go to our website, which is www.njrtl.org. We post articles up there all the time. We have a legislative action center where you can send a pre-written email to your legislators. All you have to do is put in your address and it will populate the name of your legislators and it will send the email to them. And we know that a lot of people have been using this this service because we can see the reports, and they've gotten thousands and thousands of emails and phone calls urging them to oppose this bill. And I'd like to think that so many of them who signed on as sponsors, and there really are a lot in the assembly, really were not aware of how extreme and radical this bill truly was. So
Right.
hopefully getting the message now, and we're asking people when they contact their legislators that if they're sponsors, ask them to withdraw their sponsorship from the bill. That's really
Right.
important.
Right. And you, throughout your career, you've examined a lot of legislation. One of the proposals that we have suggested is that instead of thinking about term limits for representatives, we need to limit the laws that they make and the wording of the laws. We know how many pages this law is. And Madison talks about in the Federalist Papers how laws needed to be simple enough for lay people and for working people to be able to understand. And we suggest that a law should be one proposal at a time, not all of the continuous omnibus proposals that make up these bills. Of course, federal bills are in the thousands of
Right.
pages, but the law should be very succinct and very, very limited, as the government was intended to be. But before we wrap up, Marie, let's talk a little bit about Roe v. Wade. The time in which that the ruling, of course, was a devastating ruling in 1973, took all the power away from the states, which essentially had the power to formulate abortion laws, which were designed to protect not only the child, but also the mother. And of course, the
Mm-hmm.
Roe v. Wade court turned that around. They
Right.
never took into consideration, Marie, the viability of the life, the
Mm-hmm.
humanness, if you will, of the child whatsoever. And we did a video series that you can see on our New Jersey Constitutional Republicans YouTube channel. We did a series entitled Abortion versus Natural Rights. And we have an interview that Dan Moyer did of Justice Blackmun, who wrote the majority opinion in that case. And he said that the time to emancipate women was at that time, that was a motivating factor in causing this ruling. And of course, we know that that is activism on the court, and it's certainly not
Right.
incorporating judicial review and applying constitutional protections to the life of the child developing in the womb. So you could see that there was a clear initiative on Justice Blackmun's part to literally, and remarkably, he uses the idea of an emancipation and giving the woman the right to terminate the life of her child. That's remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was that one section in Roe versus Wade where Harry Blackmun wrote, when medicine and science cannot come to consensus on when life begins, the judiciary is not in a position at this point in man's knowledge to make a determination regarding the answer. However, he did say, if it could ever be determined that the fetus is a person, then the right of the fetus would be equal to that of the woman and be protected under the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. And that was
Right.
1973.
No.
Okay, we're now 2021. Medicine and science has advanced to a point where it's undeniable, indisputable. We can see
No
that
question.
baby on ultrasound. We can see that baby's heart beating 18 days after conception. We can see the baby growing in the womb. I mean, there's so many beautiful videos. National Geographic does one called In the Womb. I mean, you cannot deny that this clearly is a human being and clearly is a person. And of course, deserving of full protection of the law. And the time is way overdue for Roe versus Wade to be overturned. It's just shameful that so many years that we have had in this country, where over 60 million babies have been killed because of Roe versus Wade, because of this mistake called Roe versus Wade. And, those of us in the pro-life movement work just very hard, and we just keep praying for the day that, the Supreme Court will have the courage to do what is right and overturn this terribly unjust decision. The time is long overdue.
No question, Marie. And what we propose is that the court recognize the inviolability of the life of the child from conception. And as you just said, that the science is overwhelming. 18 days we have a heart. We have ultrasound that parents are going and seeing their children. The science is on our side.
Absolutely.
The progressives like to claim the science is on their side, but not when it comes to the inviolability of the life of the child.
Isn't
We
that the
believe that
truth?
we believe that the court we believe that the court needs to recognize the constitutionality of the protection of the life of the child. And here's the good news, Maria, that throughout constitutional history, blacks were not given recognition by the Constitution, but yet after the Civil War and the winning of the Civil War, they were. Uh,
Mhm.
Americans, Indian Americans, the indigenous people were not given constitutional recognition, but yet they were later on.
Mhm.
Workers and child workers, and of course, women were given the right to vote. So we believe that now the next logical process would be to give the constitutionality giving the constitutional protection of the life of the child developing in the womb from conception.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
And
it's just incredible, really. I always just it boggles the mind that people see this newborn baby and everybody oohs and ahs over this beautiful little baby, but yet 30 seconds before the baby's born, the baby could be killed and it's okay. I mean, how can that be
right,
right? It's
right,
just so inconsistent. There's such a dichotomy. It's like a schizophrenic mentality.
that's
These
right,
are the same babies in the womb. They're just a little bit younger. That's it. Clearly alive, clearly
right.
human, deserving of protection.
That's right. And we go back to the Declaration of Independence as Abraham Lincoln did, Marie, and we talk about the laws of nature and nature's God. And eliminating a child, a harmless, helpless baby within its mother's womb is no doubt an infraction on the laws of nature and nature's God. And it was the laws of nature and nature's God that the founders looked to entitle them to the separation from the crown of England, uh, so that they could exercise their natural rights. And those natural rights, of course, being among them the life of the inalienable right to life, the God-given unalienable
Right.
right to life is the first natural right, and
That's right.
that also includes the children, those human beings that are being developed in their womb. What's amazing is, and you made light of this, is the fact that those who are for abortion deny the very humanity. They deny the personhood of the child. And of course, we've seen throughout history that those who inflict and oppress others throughout history have said the same thing. They said, well, they're really not human beings. The positive good school of the Confederacy said the same thing about the black slaves. And of course, as Republicans, we associate the self-evident truth that all men are created equal. Well, that also includes those in the womb, and it
Mhm.
included those black brothers and sisters who are eventually freed, as well as all human beings.
Mhm.
And it's very simple that if we incorporate and bring back readopt the principles of the Declaration of Independence, which the Republican Party needs to do, then we strengthen our argument. Because as we were saying earlier, too, the other thing that's remarkable is that they believe that the validity of the child is only based on whether the mother wants the child or not. So an unwanted child is treated as being non-human, but yet the child who is wanted is treated as human. That's a terrible contradiction, and it contradicts the laws of nature and nature's God.
Yes, absolutely. And the work of the crisis pregnancy centers is so amazing. They help so many women who are in problem pregnancies be able to choose life. Unlike Planned Parenthood, who obviously makes a fortune from promoting and pushing women to have abortions. But so often, women are not wanting to. They're not choosing abortion. They're having abortions because they feel there's no other choice. Sometimes it's a financial situation, and that's why the pregnancy centers do such great work, because they are able to help them and let them know that there should never be anyone in New Jersey that feels like they have to have an abortion because they can't afford to have the child, because there's so many services and help out there for these women, and they do a wonderful job in helping those women, and they should be commended for the work that they do as well.
No question. And we've also suggested, Marie, that the men the men who are involved with the pregnancy of the mothers need to step up and
Yeah,
to be strong and
absolutely.
to give them support and to be responsible before engaging in relations that they may not should be engaging in without realizing the consequences of that
Yes,
engagement. Now it's important for men to be leaders, to be strong, to be there for their girlfriends or their wives, and make the right decisions, and realize that there are circumstances and that there are consequences to making
right.
decisions. And we have to, and that also goes along with the line of respecting the life of the child from the very moment of conception.
That's right. Absolutely. And we've had a lot of men call our offices who are devastated because their girlfriends want to have an abortion, or their wives, and
Mhm.
they ask for our help. And what we can do is say, try to get them to go to a pregnancy center and let them know that there's help. But they ask, do I have any rights? And I have to tell them that according to the courts, they have no rights. So you're
Mm.
absolutely right. Clearly, you need to take responsibility before you engage, in an act, obviously, that could cause the conception of a child, and to understand and make sure that, you're on the same agreement with, your wife in terms of this kind of issue. Because clearly, unfortunately, the court said that men have no rights at all, and yet they obviously have responsibility, and it takes two to
Right.
obviously create a child. So it's a very sad situation.
It is, but so let's keep up the good work that you're doing. Let's encourage the people to get out there and let their representatives know of their displeasure of the Reproductive Freedom Act, which we call the Reproductive Murder Act,
The Freedom to Kill
which is
Act.
really Freedom to Kill Act. And of course, we're not laughing. We're laughing in our disgust, but
Yeah,
uh, let's go to, I encourage all of the listeners to go to the Right to Life New Jersey Right to Life page on Facebook. You also have the website. Do what we can to help, volunteer, help Marie and the great work that she's doing. Support the Constitutional Republicans by sharing this video and letting people know that the right to life, the first right to life, the first natural right is indeed the right to life. And that applies to the child from the moment of conception. But Marie, I thank you very much for joining me. And if there's anything else you'd like to say to the audience before we sign off.
just sign up for our emails so that you can be informed as to what activities we're involved in and where we're going to hold our protest next. And just educate as many people as you know about this radical bill. And remember, it's an election year. Governor Murphy's up for reelection. The entire legislature is up for reelection. Let's use that to our advantage, and don't forget all this at election time, and make sure that you don't vote for people who are supporting this type of legislation and pushing this type of legislation.
Well, great, Marie. We hope you'll come back and join us again and give us an update in the future. And we look forward to working with you. We'd love to attend the rallies and help support all the great work that you're doing. And
Thank you.
this is indeed true justice that we are hoping for the lives of those awaiting their birth. And as we conclude the show, remember what Abraham Lincoln said. He did say liberty for all, and he certainly included those awaiting birth in their mother's wombs. Thank you very
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Marie. Talk to you soon. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Bye-bye.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Bye-bye.
Please share
You
the
too.
video. Thank you.
Okay, will
Bye-bye.
do. Bye.